Okay, oh, okay. Almost had a near spill there, but alright, so today we're gonna be continuing with the build. It's a different day, different, shirt, everything. Don't worry, it's a different day. Trust me, it's been like a full week since I've been able to sit down and just like start building this again. That aside, what we're gonna be doing today is installing the xing motors on top of the frame right that I built on the last episode. So we built this TBS Source 1 V5 build on the last episode. So if you guys need any tutorial or steps on how to build this frame, consult the last video in this playlist, or I might put a card up somewhere here that takes you back there. So if you need to pause this, click on that, and be sure to go learn how to build this. So as I was saying, today we're going to be throwing the motors on. So all in all, we're going to be installing the motors today, as well as the Speedybee ESC. This would include soldering the motors to the ESC, so we're going to do a little bit of soldering with our video today. We're hopefully going to get one step closer to making this Source 1 fly. So what are we waiting for? Why don't we just throw these together and get started. Let's start by unboxing the stuff that we're going to be using for the build today. So we're just going to put, actually, first steps first, let's take off the top plate because we're going to desperately need the space. Alright, so with the top plate off, we can just set the top plate aside. Oh, we can also remove the camera plates. Okay, so we're going to put the frame aside because we first need to unbox everything. We're just going to quickly open each one. So in each box, it'll come with 4 screws and 1 nylon nut. That's to secure your prop to the actual motor, and then the screws are to secure the motor to the frame. So that's what these things are for, and you're gonna get one of these baggies in every single box. Alright, so cool. Now that we have all 4 motors plus their little baggies all laid out, next step is to take the little 4 screws, and then we're gonna screw them into the 4 holes here, where it's just gonna sit on the frame just like that. So we're just gonna line up these holes with the bottom of these holes. Now you'll notice that these holes are wider, so you're just gonna need to kind of eyeball it. Make sure the center of the motor, the screw here, is aligned with the hole here. So you just want to line it up with your finger just like that, and then take this and screw it in there. So like these screws, they stick up only a little bit, but that's more than enough. So we're just gonna do this and just screw it in. There you go. And now that you have 1 screw on there, don't screw it on too tight yet, because you do want to move it around a little bit later on. So once you have 1 screw on, that should be okay. You'll just take another screw. Just put in like I would say 2 screws per motor for now, and then the rest you can put in later on. Okay, so that is 1 motor done. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the other 3 arms and the other 3 motors, and we'll just fast forward that for now. Now that you have all your motors screwed onto the frame, just like so, a bit overexposed, but sorry about that. But now that you have your motors kind of like with 2 screws in on each side, you're halfway done there. Now you got like this dangling, spinning, mess of spaghetti. We're gonna address that very, very soon. Don't worry. So now we can actually put this to the side, because our next step involves the ESC. We will be soldering outside of the frame, because I find it's much easier to solder outside of the frame than within the confines of like all these standoffs. It just makes getting the soldering iron around these little tight spaces really much more difficult, and hence why we'll be soldering outside of the frame. Okay, so we can actually throw this aside. I'm not going to throw it because yeah, let's just not cause any further damage than is necessary. So we're just gonna put that aside there. What we're going to be needing today is, of course, the ESC, which it comes in the Speedybee box. We're going to be using this bottom piece right here, the ESC with the 2 butt-shaped cutouts. That's what we're going to be using. We're not using the top yet, just the bottom. Once you take out the top tray here, the bottom there's going to be accessories. You're going to get an XT60, which is what you'll be plugging in your battery into. And then lastly, you're going to need this big ass capacitor. This is what we're going to be relocating as well. Normally it sits in the back near where the Vista and the VTX sits, but for now, because this is such a tight frame, we're actually going to move it to the front and we're just going to zip tie it and then put it like right here or something, just so that we have some more room in the back and to fit the Vista and stuff. So I'm going to take you through the steps of how to do that, and then we're going to just do it, you know? Just get it done with. Here we are. We got our Speedybee ESC. I've also taken the liberty to put in this little short ribbon cable. This is what will be connected to the flight controller so that power can flow through. First things first, we're gonna solder the XT60 connector, which is this red and black wire. Red is obviously your positive, so that's your powers, and then black is your negative, which is your ground cable. Okay, on the ESC you'll see that there is a positive and a negative icon. Obviously, as I just described, the red, which is your positive, will go to the positive pad. Your black, which is your negative, will be on your negative pad. Okay, but before we start, we're gonna have to tin up the wires on these XT60s. So we're just gonna take a little bit of flux and then make a little ball on each end so that we have some flux to work with. At the same time, we're also gonna prepare the pad for solder. So we're gonna put flux on here and then make the little solder balls so that it sticks up here. And then after that, we're just gonna melt it in and let it sit like that, basically like this, with solder on top. So let's begin. Alright, let me interject here. So right now I'm putting the what do you call it, heat shrink onto the little capacitor leads, which I cut approximately to length. You're gonna have to decide where you want to put this. I'm gonna just mount it in the front here and on the side, as I plan to run a beeper on the frame here somewhere. Now we're just gonna solder this and this together, and we should be golden. All right, let's do it. First things first, we do need to prep the ends of these, so that's just putting some solder on top of it so that we can have some base to start with. Now this is a really tight, concise solder, so if you guys need some extra time, feel free, pause the video and make it some extra time. Okay, so I'm just gonna do one side of this, and then the other side I will just fast forward, and then we can go from there. So I always use tape as my helping hand to hold things to the desk or whatnot. It's just easy this way. Okay, so we can do that. I'm just gonna coat a little bit on here. Okay, now we're gonna solder onto the big board. Alright, and that is our capacitor extension. Now what we're going to do just to keep this more safe is we're going to electrical tape this over here just to enforce the joint. Okay, so now that we finished that part, now that we have our ESC prepped, we have the LiPo connection installed, plus the extended capacitor. We also extended it and wrapped, like usually you use heat shrink, but I'm using electrical tape, ends that you soldered on to the capacitor so that nothing sparks in there. Everything's prepped, we're ready to go back to using the frame. So get your frame out in the next step. Before you move on to the next step, just make sure the gold strip is on your your negative connection, which is your black wire here. And the one without the gold strip is on your red connection, your positive. If not, fire will ensue. So just keep that in mind. All right, next step. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the camera side, so the 2 slots for the camera plates, away from yourself. Move all these wires out of the place. Just give yourself some room. And with these 4 gummies, the yellow pieces, slide them over the 4 silver stack screws so that it looks something like this. There you go. And it should slide in nicely. If not, just give a little bit persuasion. There you go. Just slide it in there. Perfect. Just like that. So last step for this video is to trim all these motor wires to the correct length so that you don't have motor dangling spaghetti noodles all over the place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one of them, and then it's pretty much the same steps for the other 3 motors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the back one right here. I'm just going to put everything on the bottom so it looks and is more manageable. So with our ESC mounted in place, we kind of know where it's going to sit. Now we will trim these motor wires so that they are to correct length to fit on these pads here. These are the motor pads, so each 3 is 1 motor basically. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so if you have a clip, this is where it helps. So what you're going to do is try and flatten the motor wires as best as possible. Keep them in kind of uniform. So like when they come out wrapped up here, they kind of have a ready in order. So just keep that and make it follow it down. So just stretch it out so that it's straight. Okay, and with your clip, clamp them down. And now we will just snip these. So get your wire cutters out. Here you go. And what you want to do is just cut enough so that you have enough cable to solder, but not too much that the cable's so long over here, like it's already almost to the other side, so you don't want that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just readjust these. There you go. And just make sure you don't mess up the order, otherwise it's going to be a hassle in the software to realign the motors and whatnot. So keep whatever wires on the right is to the very back, whatever wires in the middle is to the middle pad, whatever wires to the left of the motor is to the top of the pad. So here, and ensure that you have some slack. So like, see how if you run it like that, you're going to have like there's going to be like the motor's just going to stay in the air. So ensure you have some slack. So what I like to do is just slide this clip up so that you have more of a grasp of how it's supposed to sit. And now, so ensure you have like maybe, I want to say like a thumbnail of length left, just so that in case you make any mistakes, it doesn't really affect you all that much. So we're going to measure to the back pad right here, and we want some slack. So let's push this down a little bit, all right? And just like, maybe like that much. So we're going to cut right there. Now I'm going to use my fingernail to indent it a little bit so then we know where we need to be. And here you really don't want to cut too short, otherwise you're going to have a hell of a time extending these. It's going to be like extending this capacitor only with these motor wires. So just pay attention, don't cut too short, otherwise that will happen. Okay, so we're just gonna run it like that, and we're gonna make the cut. There you go. So it just comes off like that. Then all that remains is obviously stripping a little bit of the silicone off, preparing the motor pad to be soldered to, and then putting these on just like that. All right, so I'm just gonna do this arm here, and then it's just a repetition of the other three, so I'll do that off camera and get it done. So apply flux just like that, not too much. Perfect. I'm just gonna take a little tape so that we can make sure to cover areas we don't want any solder dripping on by mistake. So the main areas of the board, just tape it like that, just lightly. You don't have to apply it so hard. Now we're gonna get some solder on the iron. There you go, and that's it. That is it for how the motor wire is going to look. Anyways, I'm going to conclude this video because I think it's very long overdue already. I think it's probably like, what, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. I'm going to try and make it like condensed and enough for you guys to understand, but still get the general gist of things. So yeah, I'm going to go do the other 3 motors off camera, and I'll see you guys in the next part. Okay? See ya. So here we go. Okay, so obviously the wires don't match up. So we're gonna what's that? The capacitor.
Oh.
Because the back of this is too tight. Right? There's gonna be a big block sitting here already. And this goes like that, so there's no room in the back, so that's why I'm putting it in the front here.
You take a battery?
No. Yoga. So here is gonna be one block here for another electronic. Right?
Oh.
And because this is so big, I can't run it in the back here. It's gonna coincide with the...
So yeah, you can. When you're done.
I can't. This has to sit in the back.
See the back?
In the back here. That's why I can't. I have to put it in the front.
Why so thick?
It's for the camera.
Oh, you want to put extra camera on it?
This is so you can see through the goggle, this one. So this will sit in the back here. So this has nowhere to sit.
On top?
It's gonna get too hot. This gets really hot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why I put it in the front.
Now you got to put it on the side.
Yeah, it's gonna hang out where the propeller is spinning.
Yeah, it's okay. So why don't you put a solder a little bit here? A little bit here?
I did.
Stick in it.
Yeah.
Instead of just solder these two like this.
No, I'm gonna zip tie.
Zip tie them, but too heavy, huh? After. If you put the solder a little
I'm gonna solder to the wire here. It's gonna lay on the frame like this. So it's gonna go like that. and then there's just zip tie around and tape.
唔使啊 You don't zip tie. So if we solder this one in there, that's it. Don't zip tie.
Zip tie just in case, you know.
No, it'll make your fans more heavier. Okay.
Zip tie not that heavy.
Hey, ounce is ounce.
Alright, so we're back. Okay, so back to what we're doing.